Some of you are having sex regularly, but you haven't felt emotionally close to your partner in a long time. You're touched, but not held. Desired, but not understood. Wanted, but not truly seen. And the truth is, sex was never meant to replace emotional intimacy. It was meant to grow from it. If you've ever laid next to someone and still felt lonely, this video is for you. People don't leave relationships because the sex was bad. They leave because the sex stopped meaning anything. And that's the part nobody likes to talk about. You can be touching someone every night and still feel painfully alone. You can share a bed, share bodies, share heat, and still feel emotionally starved. Still feel unseen. Still feel like you're giving yourself to someone who doesn't really know you. That's why emotional intimacy matters more than sex. Because sex without emotional safety eventually feels empty. And emotional intimacy without sex can still feel warm, connected, alive. We live in a world that has confused access with closeness. If someone can touch you, desire you, sleep with you, people assume that means intimacy. But intimacy isn't about who has seen you naked. It's about who has seen you unguarded. Emotional intimacy is when someone sees your fear and doesn't weaponize it. When they hear your insecurity and don't joke about it later. When they know where you're sensitive and choose to be gentle there. Sex can happen without any of that. And many people are having sex every day without feeling emotionally safe even once. That's why some people feel lonelier in relationships than when they were single. Because being alone hurts, but being emotionally ignored while present hurts deeper. When emotional intimacy is missing, sex becomes performative. You're not connecting, you're proving. Proving you're desirable. Proving you're wanted. Proving you're enough. You start using sex to beg for closeness without realizing it. You hope that if you give your body generously enough, they'll finally open up. If you're exciting enough, soft enough, wild enough, they'll finally stay present with you. If you're sexually available, they won't emotionally abandon you. But sex was never designed to carry that weight. Emotional intimacy is built in moments that don't look sexy at all. It's built in silence. In uncomfortable conversations. In staying when it would be easier to shut down. It's built when someone asks, "What hurt you today?" and actually listens to the answer. Not to fix it. Not to dismiss it. But to understand you. And this is where many relationships break quietly. Because emotional intimacy requires vulnerability. And vulnerability requires courage. And courage requires self-awareness. A lot of people can undress their bodies easily. But undressing their emotions terrifies them. So they replace depth with desire. They replace connection with chemistry. They replace safety with passion. And at first, it feels intoxicating. Sex can distract you from emotional emptiness for a while. It can feel like closeness. It can feel like bonding. But over time, the body notices what the heart is missing. You start feeling disconnected after sex instead of closer. You crave reassurance instead of rest. You feel used even when no one intended to use you. That's your nervous system telling you something important. This is not intimacy. This is contact without connection. Emotional intimacy is what makes sex feel grounding instead of draining. It's what makes sex feel safe instead of anxiety-inducing. It's what allows your body to relax instead of perform. When emotional intimacy exists, sex becomes an expression, not a transaction. You're not trading your body for affection. You're sharing your body from a place of trust. And that changes everything. Because when emotional intimacy is present, even silence feels close. Even doing nothing together feels meaningful. You don't feel like you're constantly auditioning for love. You can breathe. Many people are exhausted in relationships because they are emotionally hypervigilant. Always reading moods. Always adjusting behavior. Always wondering if they're too much or not enough. That exhaustion doesn't come from lack of sex. It comes from lack of emotional safety. Sex can be intense, but emotional intimacy is sustaining. Sex can spark a connection, but emotional intimacy is what keeps it alive. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people prefer sex over emotional intimacy because sex feels safer to them. Sex has rules. Emotional intimacy doesn't. Sex can be controlled. Emotional intimacy requires surrender. To be emotionally intimate, you have to risk being misunderstood. You have to risk being rejected. You have to let someone see the parts of you that aren't impressive. And that's terrifying for people who learned early on that love was conditional. So they give sex, but withhold themselves. And they don't even realize they're doing it. A lot of people say, "I'm just not emotional." But that's rarely true. What they usually mean is, "Being emotional never felt safe for me." So instead of learning how to connect emotionally, they learned how to connect physically. Because physical intimacy gives the illusion of closeness without the risk of exposure. You can have sex and still keep your heart guarded. You can orgasm and still be emotionally distant. You can hold someone all night and never let them truly in. And for people with emotional wounds, that feels safer. Emotional intimacy asks questions sex never does. Questions like, "Can you sit with me when I'm not okay? Will you still respect me when I'm vulnerable? Will you stay present when I'm not easy to love?" Sex doesn't demand answers to those questions. Emotional intimacy does. That's why emotional intimacy triggers people more than sex ever could. It activates old fears. Fear of abandonment. Fear of being too much. Fear of being ignored again. So instead of leaning into emotional closeness, many people unconsciously sabotage it. They joke when things get serious. They shut down when conversations go deep. They change the subject when emotions surface. But they're always ready for sex. And over time, the partner who craves emotional intimacy starts feeling confused. They want my body, but they don't want my inner world. They desire me, but they don't really know me. That kind of confusion eats away at self-worth. Because humans don't just want to be desired. They want to be understood. Sex makes you feel wanted in the moment. Emotional intimacy makes you feel chosen over time. And there is a difference. You can be sexually desired and still emotionally disposable. You can be physically craved and still emotionally replaceable. But when someone is emotionally intimate with you, they don't just want you when it's convenient. They want you when it's complicated, when it's uncomfortable, when it's real. Emotional intimacy shows up in consistency, not intensity. Intensity can be manufactured. Consistency cannot. Sex is often intense in the beginning of relationships. But emotional intimacy reveals itself later, when the novelty fades and the reality remains. That's when you see who is truly capable of connection. And here's where many people get it wrong. They chase chemistry instead of compatibility. They chase sparks instead of safety. But chemistry without emotional intimacy burns fast and dies quick. Safety without chemistry can grow into desire over time. Because emotional intimacy allows attraction to deepen instead of fade. When you feel emotionally safe, your body relaxes. When your body relaxes, desire becomes more authentic. Not rushed. not pressured, not forced. This is why sex feels better with someone who knows you emotionally. Not just because of technique, but because your nervous system trusts them. Your body knows when it's safe. That's also why emotionally disconnected sex can leave you feeling empty, anxious, or even sad afterward. Your body was present, but your heart wasn't held. And the body remembers that. Many people confuse sexual compatibility with emotional compatibility. They think because the sex is good, the relationship is strong. Until one day, the sex can't distract them from the emotional gap anymore. And suddenly, everything feels off. You argue more. You feel misunderstood. You feel alone even when you're together. And instead of addressing the emotional disconnect, some couples try to fix it with more sex. More frequency. More intensity. More experimentation. But you can't out-sex emotional neglect. No amount of physical closeness can compensate for emotional distance. Because emotional intimacy is what makes you feel secure enough to be fully yourself. To express needs without fear. To set boundaries without guilt. To say, "This hurts me," without being punished for it. When emotional intimacy is missing, people start shrinking themselves. They stop expressing. They stop asking. They stop expecting. And that quiet self-abandonment is far more damaging than lack of sex. Sex is about bodies meeting. Emotional intimacy is about lives intertwining. It's knowing someone's triggers, their history, their soft spots, their patterns. It's caring about how your actions land on them, not just how they feel to you. And this is the truth most people avoid. If emotional intimacy scares someone, it's not because they don't care. It's because they learned early on that closeness leads to pain. So they keep relationships surface level, fun, sexual, light, but never deep. Because depth requires accountability. Depth requires emotional presence. Depth requires growth. And growth is uncomfortable. Emotional intimacy doesn't look like constant talking or dramatic vulnerability. It doesn't mean oversharing or forcing emotions. Real emotional intimacy is subtle, quiet, consistent. It's when someone notices your mood shift without you announcing it. When they check in instead of checking out. When they don't rush to fix you, but they don't abandon you either. It's in the way someone stays emotionally present during conflict. Not disappearing. Not shutting down. Not turning everything into a joke or an argument. Because anyone can be affectionate when things are good. Emotional intimacy is revealed when things are uncomfortable. This is where many people confuse attachment with intimacy. Attachment says, "I don't want to lose you." Intimacy says, "I want to know you." You can be deeply attached to someone and still emotionally disconnected from them. You can fear losing someone more than you value understanding them. That's why some relationships are full of jealousy, control, and intensity, but completely empty of emotional safety. People cling, but they don't connect. They mistake anxiety for love, possession for closeness, sexual access for emotional availability. But emotional intimacy is not about possession. It's about presence. It's not about needing someone. It's about choosing them while remaining whole. And here's how you can tell when sex is masking emotional emptiness. You feel close during sex, but distant afterward. You crave reassurance more than affection. You feel anxious instead of calm when you're apart. You feel emotionally hungry even though your physical needs are met. Those are not signs of passion. Those are signs of emotional deprivation. When emotional intimacy is present, sex leaves you feeling settled, grounded, connected, not questioning where you stand. Another sign emotional intimacy is missing is when difficult conversations feel impossible. You walk on eggshells. You avoid bringing things up. You minimize your feelings to keep the peace. You're sexually open, but emotionally censored. And over time, that creates resentment. Because the human soul doesn't just want pleasure. It wants to be acknowledged. This is why emotional intimacy is deeply linked to self-worth. When someone listens to you without dismissing your feelings, your nervous system learns, I matter. When someone remembers what hurts you and protects that place, your body learns, I am safe here. And safety is the foundation of lasting desire. Without emotional intimacy, sex can become a coping mechanism, a distraction, a temporary relief from loneliness. With emotional intimacy, sex becomes a shared language, a way of saying, I'm here with you. And this is important. Emotional intimacy cannot be forced. You cannot drag someone into emotional depth if they are not ready. You cannot love someone into emotional availability. You cannot sex someone into emotional maturity. People open emotionally when they feel safe within themselves, not when they're pressured by someone else. So if you find yourself constantly craving emotional closeness from someone who only offers physical intimacy, that's not a failure on your part. It's information. It's showing you the level of intimacy they're capable of right now. And you get to decide whether that level is enough for you. Because emotional intimacy is not a luxury. It's not an extra. It's a basic human need. Without it, relationships feel hollow. Even when they look good on the outside. Even when the sex is great. At some point, your heart will ask for more than your body is getting. And ignoring that question doesn't make it disappear. At the end of the day, sex answers the question, do you want me? But emotional intimacy answers a much deeper one. Do you see me? And the human soul will always crave being seen more than being touched. Because bodies age. Desire fluctuates. Sex changes over time. But emotional intimacy is what allows love to evolve instead of expire. It's what makes someone feel chosen even on days they don't feel attractive. It's what makes someone feel valued even when they can't give much. It's what keeps a relationship alive when passion quiets down. Without emotional intimacy, sex becomes a performance. With it, sex becomes a connection. And here's the truth many people don't want to hear. If someone only connects with you through sex, they are connecting with the part of you that asks the least of them. Your body doesn't demand accountability. Your emotions do. Your body doesn't require growth. Your heart does. That's why emotional intimacy feels heavier. Because it requires responsibility. Responsibility for how you affect someone. Responsibility for staying present. Responsibility for showing up even when it's inconvenient. And not everyone is ready for that. Some people will choose sex because it's easier than depth. Some will choose pleasure because it doesn't challenge them. Some will choose chemistry because it doesn't require self-examination. But if you're someone who craves emotional intimacy, you are not too much. You are not needy. You are not asking for something unreasonable. You are asking for connection. And connection is not weakness. It's maturity. It takes strength to sit with emotions. It takes courage to be seen. It takes self-awareness to love someone beyond desire. So don't let a world obsessed with sex convince you that emotional intimacy is optional. It isn't. It's the difference between feeling wanted and feeling valued, between being touched and being held, between being desired and being known. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever felt emotionally hungry in a relationship that looked fine on the surface, then this channel is for you. This is Psychology of Intimacy, where we talk about the truths people feel but rarely say out loud. Like the video if it spoke to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you're ready to stop confusing sex with connection. Because intimacy isn't about how close bodies get. It's about how safe hearts feel.